Welcome back to your crafty place. So we're going to continue on the card making with just very basic, very minimalistic supplies. So the last one that I just put out was basically just paper, some cardstock, the card bases, glue, a paper trimmer, and some ephemera for the sentiments, and then I used some diamond dots for the embellishments. So this time around I have gone to Pinterest and I typed in card templates and I came up with this one. This one happens to be a Queen and Company card template that was out there, but if you search Pinterest you're going to find all of them, and these give you an idea of how to do some card fronts. We're going to keep it simple again this week, and we're only going to use a paper trimmer, maybe scissors, maybe. But we're going to try and just do the paper trimmer, because if you are new to paper crafting, you won't have a lot of things. You'll probably have a pair of scissors, even if they're, you know, like the kids' scissors. You probably have a pair of scissors, so we may add in the scissors. And then this week we're also going to add in a stamp set and an ink pad. Just one. And just a block. If you go to Hobby Lobby, they still have wooden stamps. You can get a wooden stamp from there. I'm using some... I think they're polymer, polymer, but I'm not 100% sure. But this is the stamp set that we'll be using this week. But I've done a little bit more prep work this week. Instead of you sitting there and having to watch me cut everything out, I'll tell you the measurements of what I cut. But I used 12 by 12 paper again. We are using black for the heavier cardstock, but the smaller pieces are still just the thinner, much thinner, like almost copy paper, and then the black cardstock is Hobby Lobby's cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker. It's not the best quality, so I don't use this as a card base or as a main thing, but I do use it as a layering cardstock. And then we'll do the card bases, and I will pull a card base out this time, or a white 110-pound cardstock out this time, and show you how I made the card base without having to have a scoreboard, because the scoreboard will come later. Maybe you don't need a scoreboard just yet, but if you have one, you can score the paper and make your card that way, and then use your paper trimmer to cut it. But we're not going to use that. We're just going to use paper trimmer, glue, or tape if you don't like glue, and then a stamp set. We may use some embellishments. If you have ephemera left over from the last sets of cards that you made, incorporate that into this. If you don't have a stamp set, you don't have to have a stamp set. You can continue to use ephemera, or you can print some sentiment off of a printer if you have a printer, and then just cut them out. However you want to do that is fine, but we're going to use these templates here, and we're going to make a card similar to this and a card similar to this. So I have cut the pages, or cut the paper already. That is for the second one, and this is for the first one. So the first one, I have a layering piece that is, probably don't like that on there, but it's easier to see. Let me see if we can see this one. So this one is 4 and about 1/8. I didn't do the best job cutting it. By 5 and 3/8. So the 5 is 1 notch after the quarter, or 1/8 after the quarter, so one of the longer lines after the 5 1/4, or right before the 5 1/2. And then the smaller side is the 4 1/8, which is the first longer notch. So if this one is 1/16, so if yours has 1/16, it's going to be the longer one, but not the 1/4 inch, or the second one if you're doing the 1/8. So like on this one, that's the first 1/8, that's a 1/16, and then that's the 1/4. The lines are a little bit longer, and then the 5 3/8 is there. So that's what this first piece is. And then our layering pieces, I have 4 different pieces of paper here, because that's what our diagram is 4 different pieces of paper. And then we're also going to need a white sheet of paper. I forgot to mention that, but I have another white sheet that's similar to the black, and it's not as heavy. So we're going to use that to cut some things out as well. These are all cut to the same. and they are cut to 5 1/4, so just a tad bit smaller than our black piece. And then this is cut to 3/4, so all of these are 5 1/4 by 3/4. And then we are going to lay them out on our black piece and try to evenly space. Easiest way to do that is to take your paper, in my opinion, is to take your paper and lay the two on the sides first. Make sure you have kind of the same amount of border around 3 of their sides, top, side, and bottom. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to lay these other 2 down and try and give me the same amount of space in between these guys, so that my space on the inside is the same, but my space on the outside is the same. So that one, I think the pink one might need to be moved over a little bit, but that gives you an idea of kind of what we're going for. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to glue these down. I am using this Craftlier tacky glue. It's just from Amazon. If you have the reverse tweezers, you can use those to try and keep your fingers a little less inky, or a little less gluey. I store this, so this one came with this little thing here, and I would use it to put my bottle in to keep my glue upright, because that keeps me from having to shake my glue down every time, which sometimes you have to shake a little more than you do others. So there is that. Color doesn't really matter too much. I tried to pick colors that were in with the flowers. So I'm going to glue this piece down as well. Again, make sure you get it on the corners, because the corners are what's going to take the biggest wear and tear when you're pulling that card in and out of the envelope. And I'm just going to try and space it about the same as I did that one over there. So these 2 will be the same, and then our center one will be the same. Our center 2 will be the same. So that one needed to come down just a little bit. There we go. So there is that. So now if I lay these down again, and I think they're different than what they were the last time. I think I had blue first maybe. Doesn't really matter. This is completely up to you. I'll move that one over just a little bit, move that one over. So I think that will work. I'm going to pick up my pink first. And you could use a ruler if you wanted to get the spacing exactly right. I am not that particular. And a ruler technically is not one of the items that we have yet. I only have the ruler there just to show you what my measure. I apologize, my camera died there and I was trying to get it fixed and had to delete some images off there. So I let that one dry down on there. So it's a little crooked, but that's okay. And then we're going to put this one on here. And I say that's okay. If you don't like it, you can peel it up and put something over it. But we are going to be putting a sentiment across, or an image across here. If you look at this one, there's an image. So we're going to be, I think it'll be okay. So I am going to, we're going to put this one aside because we're not going to do that when we're working on this one right now. So I'm going to use this piece of paper that I have here that's white. And there's not measurements on this, so I'm just going to look at, okay, well I need one for a sentiment that's about the same width as the card. So about 4 1/4 is what I need this one to be. I'm going to take it down a little bit less because it looks like there's a white card base around there too, so maybe 4 inches is what I'll do the sentiment strip for. So then this one up here is even smaller than that, so I'm going to take this one to maybe 3 1/2. And it definitely looks smaller, so I'll do that by 3 1/2 by about 2. And then this one looks like it's by about maybe 3/4 of an inch. So we are going to do, let's do the 2 first maybe. Let's see let's first look at our stamp set and see what we have on our stamp set, because we may need to make it bigger for our stamp set. So since I'm going to use the stamp set, if I'm going to go with my stamp set like this, and if I'm going to use the bird, I need a bigger area for the bird. But I could use the flower and do some of the flowers on probably a 2-inch piece. So let's do that. So we're going to stick with the 2 inches. And then we're going to do, I think I said by 3.5. Let's do 3.5. We're going to say that that's good. So we're going to do 2 by 3.5, and that one's going to go there. And then I need one that is about 3/4 of an inch. And I could take my piece of paper all the way over and measure to my 3/4 of an inch right there. Or this is about 4 inches width. So I'm going to go over to the 3¼ and I'm going to cut that. That gives me the 3/4 inch that I need for my sentiment strip. And then this one I want to be about 4. So we're going to cut it down to about 4. Now we still have this circle that we need to do as well. But what I might do is pull out some sentiment or some ephemera that we had from last week and put on there, or we may just do some embellishments there and and maybe have another little white piece, like maybe take this little white piece and use it on there. But we're gonna wait and see. I will cut this one down though so that we are ready. Let's just cut this one down to 1¼ by 1¼ Okay, so those are done. We're ready to move on that. Okay, so this one has a neat little shape on it. If I had a die, I could use my die and cut that out, but I can also kind of just sketch out what I wanted. Like if maybe I just want round corners, or maybe I want corners to be just diagonal. So I'm going to use my scissors. If you had a paper trimmer that allowed you to cut, we can use this one here. So if you have a paper trimmer like this, which is fine, like I said, there's nothing wrong with this type of paper trimmer. You could put it in here and go over to, let's say we're going to go over to 1/2 inch. And then this comes down to 3.5, so I'm going to take this up so that this line here goes to my 3. Okay, so that's 1/2 inch. And then this one here, I'm going to take it down so that line comes to 1/2 inch. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to do the same thing. 1/2 inch, take this up, make sure I'm holding it, go down to that 1/2 inch, raise it up, bring it down below, and then go up to that 3. And I went over because my paper was getting stuck a little bit. That's why I'm not a huge fan of these, but they'll be okay. So I went 1/2 inch, so I'm going to go here to take this one on this side to 1/2 inch, and I'm going to go up to 2.5, and hopefully I don't go over it. You should be able to feel it whenever it gets to that piece, because now you're cutting that little square off. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to come down to that 1/2 inch. And you can see that there's some lines on there. You could use some distressing, which I will show you how to do to kind of get rid of some of those. If you had a better trimmer, you wouldn't have that problem. So I'm going to go up to that 1/2 inch again, check it. I think got that one, and then same way here. I'm going to go down to that 1/2 inch, and I can kind of feel it when I get to that 1/2 inch because we've already cut in one spot, so you can sort of feel where it's at. So now we have kind of a decorative piece. You could also cut one, like, let me show you another way. So if you had scissors, I'm going to cut another one that is, what was this one? 2 by 3.5. So we're going to cut another one here that's 2 by 3.5, and we're going to use scissors this time. So let's say this time we wanted to kind of go up maybe a little bit. Maybe we wanted to round it a little bit. So let's start here, and let's say we want to come up here and we want to round up, and then we're going to slowly go this way, round out, and then round that corner again. So we've done that. Now I'm going to take this one, and I'm either going to hold it here and cut around it, or I'll take my pencil and just kind of trace around the one that I cut out already. So there's a little bit of a nub here. And you want to use a pencil because you'll likely have to cut off a little, or erase a little bit of that, because you probably won't cut it all off. So here's another one. This time I flipped it over. And I'm gonna, and then this one I'm gonna flip it back over again. And this won't be perfect, but it won't be horrible either. It'll be, so I'm gonna go along like that. And then if I need to trim that up, I'm just gonna trim it up a little bit, kind of like a fingernail file. You just keep going until you get it where you want it. So then we're gonna do that again. We're gonna kind of come in at an angle, go around. I can see that I didn't get to that line, so I'm gonna come back a little bit, go back to that line, go up, and then slowly taper off. Again, I can tell that that line is not perfect. I'm going to come in again, going at a little bit of an angle, go up straight line, twist just a little bit. This whole line is a little bit curved. And then I could come back in and erase all my marks or flip it over. So there's two different ways you could do this if you don't have any dies. So that's going to go on there like that. And you can fix it up a little bit if you think you need to. Like maybe this one isn't as curved as the other one. So we're going to trim it up a little bit. This one doesn't look like it comes in as much. So I'm going to maybe do this a little bit. Just don't get too carried away, because you can get to the point where you're cutting it down to the point of you have nothing left. So if you had a die, use a die. If you have a punch, use a punch. You could definitely use a punch as well. I am then going to take my flower, like I said, and I'm just going to stamp my flower on here a few times. So the flat side goes up so that I can grab hold of it with my block, so you can feel the ridges and stuff from the stamp in there. And then that is what we are going to make contact with our paper. If you want to hold your paper down, you can put a little piece of removable tape right on the back. I'm not too worried about it, because if the stamped image doesn't come out perfect, I'm okay with that. We're just trying to get a little decoration of some sort on here. So I'm going to kind of go at a little bit of an angle with it so that I can get more than one on here. So I'm going to push down. Don't rock. If you rock, you're going to have a shadow. And pull straight up. And then I'm going to put another one over here. Again, straight down, kind of push. Don't rock. Some people will tell you to rock. If I rock, I get a shadow. And if you push too hard on some stamps, you'll feel them squish. You'll also get a shadow. This one is not a cheaper stamp. I mean, it wasn't expensive, but the quality of it is a good quality stamp. So if I push, it's not squishing out from underneath it and causing the shadow. So there's that one. Now I could add another one if I wanted to. I could also take just the flower piece here if I wanted and kind of put them on the edges. But I'm going to leave it as this for now. And then this was the piece that we had that we're going to cut to kind of put down here at the edge. So maybe I will go ahead and put something on that one. Now I have a stamp chamois to clean my stamps. You don't have to have a stamp chamois. Baby wipes work. A microfiber cloth, you could use that. You might get a little dust on there, so be sure you wipe it off before you use it again. Just don't use alcohol on your stamps, because if you use alcohol, you will ruin your stamp. Okay, so there's that one. There's that. This is going to be that piece. And then this is our sentiment that's going to go across the bottom. So this one I am going to do We can do hello sweetie, or we can do happy birthday to you. I'm going to do the happy birthday to you. So again, the flat side is up so I can grab it with my block. And then ink this up. I use the Memento Tuxedo Black. It's a good universal ink. You used to be able to get it at Hobby Lobby. I haven't seen it at Hobby Lobby in a while, but I think Michael sells it. You can get it on Amazon, scrapbook.com. Most of your local scrapbook stores or stamping stores will have it. You can use alcohol markers with it. You can use colored pencils with it. There's a lot of different things you can use with it. It's a good ink if you only have one ink. You cannot emboss with it though because it dries too quickly. So I'm going to try and center this and then push down. And again, I'm just going to kind of rub my finger across it, let it sit there for a minute for the paper to absorb the ink. And then I'm going to hold the paper down and pull up. And I'm going to put the lid on my ink for two reasons. One, so my ink doesn't dry out. And two, so that I don't get ink on everything else because my hand will go in it. I'll put the paper down on it. I'll set my cutting board or my trimmer down on it. It's a thing. Trust me. Been there, done that. Have lots of ink spots all over the place. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take this stamp off and put it onto my sheet again. And then I'm going to, because this one had flags, I'm going to flag it. So I'm just going to cut down the center, and again, the reason I cut down the center is to just kind of give me a visual of where I need to take my scissors. And then I'm going to flip it over, do it again, lining up the back half of my scissors there with the corner, lining up the tip of my scissors with that mark that I made in my paper, and cut it. So again, halfway, doesn't have to be perfect. Lining up my scissors with that corner, cutting up, turning it over, and if you don't feel you need to turn it over, don't. If you can do it without having to turn it over, then you do you. So there is that. So there's this and this. Okay, so I'm sure everybody has a black pen of some sort. It doesn't have to be a Sharpie. This just happens to be what I have. If you're doing your stamped images in a different color, which you could have if you had other colored paper and other stamps or other inks, you could have done it in whatever color you wanted to. Black is what I chose. So I am going to do faux stitching. So I'm going to take my pen, and I did this on one of the cards last week. I showed you, I just didn't explain what I did. I'm just going to go along here and make little dashes. I think last week I did a dash and a dot, but it kind of makes it look like you stitched around. It will hide some of the fact that the thing is not perfect. If you did an oopsie and you got ink on the edge of your paper, you can make it look like you meant to. You could put another ink spot on your paper and then maybe make stitches around that to make it look like you patched a hole or something. So there is that. Okay, another way to cover up the edges if you didn't want to do the stitching is to do some swiping with the ink pad. So I wanted to try it before I showed you guys. So I colored in the flower with the pencil just to see what it would look like. So you could do that. Again, we're trying to use minimal supplies. So if you used the pencil earlier, you have a pencil. But if you have colored pencils or Crayola markers or something, you could color in your flowers more if you wanted to. But I'm going to flip this over and show you how to do the inking on the sides like I did. So I'm holding my paper, and with my ink pad, I've got my finger kind of on the back of it, and I'm going to take my ink pad and drag it across the paper. I'm not moving this hand at all. I am moving the ink pad. And if I want more inside, like here, I'm going to make the ink pad more flat along the paper. If I don't want that much ink, then I'm going to hold my ink pad more at an angle from the paper and then I don't get as much on the inside. It stays more along the edge, so it's kind of hard for me to do on the side there, but it's more flat. But if I do it at more of an angle, I'm getting just the edges. And then if I want to come in here and cover up that cut that I made, then I would put it more flat and get it in there and get some more lines going up it. So you can't really tell now that those cuts are there because I've hid them with the ink pad. So if you put that on there, you really don't know anymore that that's there. So whichever one you decide to use, it's your preference. Doesn't matter to me which one you use. That one's got a little bit of a burr there. We'll take that off. Now you can do the same thing with this one. So you can stitch around it, or you can take the ink pad, or if you had another color ink pad, you could take that around there. If you had a different color pencil, like let's say you wanted to do green stitching around there, or pink stitching around there, or purple stitching around there. I think I have a pink pen here. I think this is pink. Let's say we wanted to do that in pink. You don't necessarily have to use any particular kind of pen for this. You can use whatever you want. This is a Precision, a Pilot V5 RT pen, so it's a really small point. But these aren't archival items. Like, we're not putting a picture on here like you would with a scrapbook, so it doesn't need to be an archival safe pen. So I'm just going to start making dashes again and then come down. And I don't do straight lines. I just do the best that I can. If they're gonna sit there and get the ruler out and judge whether or not I've got them straight or the same number on each side, then they're not gonna get another card. Most people are just happy to get a piece of Happy Meal or a card or to be thought of. So there's that one. And it's got just different colored stitching on there now. So I have this pink pen. If I thought this pink pen would color in my flower, I could come in and do the coloring in. So like, let's just say I wanted to do a little bit of around the edges, maybe. Don't want to color the whole thing, but I just want a little bit of color in my flower. I didn't buy any expensive markers. I'm using the same color that I used on my stitching there to kind of give me some color just on the inside of my flower. So just so that they're the same, I'm going to do the same over here. And just going from the center and just kind of doing some flicks out. So now there is that one. So now I have this piece done, I have this piece done, and I have the background done. So now we need the circle, which we don't have a circle because we don't have a die cut. We don't have a die cutting machine, but maybe we have some ephemera that we want to put on here, or maybe we don't. Maybe we just want to put some embellishments on here, or maybe we just want to cut out a heart and stick a heart on here, or a diamond. Maybe we just want to leave it like this and we just want to put a diamond on there and maybe put another one of those flowers on there. You could do any of those things. You could also take with any of your extra paper that you have. Again, the assumption is that we have scissors because, you know, most people have scissors. And you're going to, I'm going to see if I have a scrap piece before I cut this big piece up here. Let's see if, nope, it doesn't look like it. So let's say that we wanted to get some of these flowers onto here. So let's look, and we didn't use yellow any place on this card, so let's try to pull out a yellow flower. So it looks like we're gonna have to go up a little bit to get to one that's full. So I'm gonna go to this one here, and I'm gonna come along and I'm just going to rough cut around this flower, and I could go in a level if I wanted to get rid of the other colors of those flowers. But we know that that other piece has flowers on it, so I think it's okay if we keep the other color flowers on there. So hopefully I'm in screen so you guys can see. And I turn the paper more than I turn my scissors. When I was doing the inking, I did the ink pad. I moved the ink pad, not the paper. I do sometimes move the paper when I'm inking too, but when I'm cutting, I usually do the turning of the paper, and I keep the paper down on the scissors quite a way. I'm not using the tip of my scissors. Usually the tips of your scissors are not, they may not cut the best. They may be a little duller. So I used further back on the scissors to do it. So now we have that little piece. So we could use this little piece and just stick that piece right down on there. Wouldn't need anything else on there. You could put it right down on there like that, but you could also put it on the white piece of paper and then put that white piece of paper down on there as well. So I'm going to really quickly grab a 110-pound piece of cardstock. If you have a scoring board, score it first to make your life a little easier when it comes to cutting. Either at the 5 1/2 if you want top folding cards, or at the 4 1/4 if you want side folding. I prefer side folding cards, but that is a personal preference. So I'm going to hold it to the side here, and then I'm going to, in the center, use my finger and work my way out. And then I'm just going to push up and push down. Now, the next thing that you may want to buy is a bone folder, or if you get a scoring board, most scoring boards come with a bone folder. If you don't have one, you could use a credit card or the top of a pen or something to crease that down. And see, ink. I'm not going to worry about that because I think everything will be covered on that, but I could probably use an eraser and erase that off there. So now I'm going to take my paper, put it in my trimmer, and I'm going to cut this to 5 1/2 because I'm making 2 cards with it. I will tell you, my 2 cards are usually never the exact same size. Sometimes it's because my paper is not truly 8 1/2 by 11. Sometimes it's because I didn't truly line it up on here. It's okay. We're not stacking our cards and giving them to people as a stack out, so we should be okay. Okay, so now I'm going to take my card base here. See, that's going to cover that right up, and we're not even going to notice it. Because of my pieces and my background having to be a little bigger, I don't have as much of a white border around it. Not a problem. If you wanted a bigger border, you could cut the, sorry, I say I'm a lot, working on it. You could cut the black piece down a little bit and have less of a space between here. So I'm going to glue this on here. You could use tear and tape if you don't like glue. And then decide which side you want it on. So here's where they were a little closer. This is definitely going to cover it up a little bit more. But if we put this down on here, it's going to be closer to that black. So I think I'm going to leave it this way and just be okay with it. They're not even. Kind of shows my personality a little bit in that I'm not even. Do make sure that your card is opening the correct way. In this case, it doesn't really matter because if you put it on there wrong, you're just going to have to decide that it's okay with the flowers on this side. And maybe you put the embellishment on this side instead. But just be sure that you're always checking the card to make sure you're opening it the correct way so that you don't have to tear your card front off. Ask me how I know. Okay, so I'm going to put this one down on here just like that. So I'm going to use glue again. If you had foam squares or any kind of foam, this would be a good place. Or if you wanted to cut multiples of these out to give it a little dimension, you could do that. So I'm just going to look to see, do I have the same amount on this side and this side? As far as it being even up here, it's hand cut. So the likelihood of it being 100% square at the top is not very high in my world. Maybe you're a better trimmer than I am. They also make T-squares that can help you line things up. So like this one is one that I got just at Walmart. It's a longer one. They make shorter ones as well. You could put this down and then that would help you line it up. I find it to be a little bit more trouble than what it's worth. I'm not that particular. Okay, so if we pull this back in, this is down closer towards the bottom. So we're going to move it down towards the bottom, and we're going to just make sure that we have about the same amount on each side and that it's sort of even, because this one should be able to be more level because we used a paper trimmer for these pieces and for this piece. The only thing we didn't use paper trimmer for were those pieces on the side, and they should be not a big deal. Okay, there's that. Looks crooked to me. Could be the paper. All right, so now we have this piece. So we need to decide on this piece. Do we want to pop it up? Do we want to cut it out so that it's only the pink in the middle? Do we not want the black and the yellow around it? Or do we want to grab a couple more and cut multiples of those out and stick multiples of them around there instead of just one big one there? That is strictly up to you and how you want to do it. I think I'm just going to, just for sake of time, I'm just going to do this one, and we're just going to pop this one down here. I like the yellow because we didn't need to use the yellow anyplace else. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, and it kind of hangs on here. You don't have to follow the sketch exactly. It just kind of hangs on there, so we're just going to kind of put it there to the side. This would be another way to cover something up. Like if we didn't like this side as much as we did this side, flip it to this side instead. So it doesn't have to be exactly like it. So there's card number 1. So card number 2 is this one here. So we already have our card base because we did 2 card bases. So this time we have our black piece. Let's put this here. So we have our black piece, which is on here is the white piece around there. Then we have our longer piece that is 5 1/4 by 3 1/2, and that's going to go down on here like this. And ours is a little bigger than what theirs is, so I may wind up trimming that down a little bit. And then this one is 5 1/4 by 1/2 inch. So yeah, I think I'm going to cut this down. I think I'm going to cut this one down to let's cut it down to 3. Let's try 3. If we don't like 3, we can come back and do it more. I want a little bit more of the black showing, and I want a little bit more for that to be able to hang off on. So there's that piece. It's going to go there. That piece is going to go there. Then this is the scalloped piece that's here. So that's going to go on here like this. We then have the flag piece that's here. So I thought we'd use the green piece to do that. We have a circle, and then we also have the sentiment here. So let's go ahead and glue this down. The sentiment I think this time maybe we'll use is the "You're So Sweet." We also have the larger white piece here that I think we can possibly fit that hummingbird on. So let's try that and see, but we're going to glue all this stuff down first. I'm going to move this just so that it's not quite as distracting. So this one, if you look, it's a little bit away from the edge, but it goes top to bottom. I like my borders, so I'm not going top to bottom. I will leave a little bit more of an edge. Not a lot, but it's more of an edge here than it is here and at the bottom. Straight to my straight. Not necessarily straight to a ruler straight. And then I'm going to glue this one as well. And then this one is going to have the same distance on the top and the bottom. I'm going to pull it over from that one just a little bit, make a mess while I do it. Try to make it straight. And then I can get my cloth out if I wanted to and do that. But that's how my fingers get so inky, is that I just use my fingers and rub it up. Okay, so there's that one. Now I'm not going to glue this one down because I like to glue the white piece of paper on top of it first. So we are going to, this one is 3 by 4, just shy of 4. So this one we are going to do about 3 1/4. No, let's do a little bit more, because this one has quite a border because it's using the scallop. So let's do 3 3 3/4. So that's about 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to do 2 1/4. because this one is 3. Yeah, and then we're going to do 2 3/4. Sorry, I said that wrong. I had it right spot, I just said it wrong. Okay, so this time we're going to see if our hummingbird will fit on here. So this time, make sure I'm in the picture here. This time the block that I have isn't big enough for the hummingbird to fit on there straight, so I'm just going to turn it at an angle. You can, with your bigger stamps, instead of going stamp to ink pad, take ink pad to stamp. So I could turn this over, make sure you have everything else out of the way, and I could ink it up this way so that I can see that I'm getting a lot of ink. Because if you don't have a stamp positioner, you probably have one shot. You may be able to get more than one shot out of it. I only have one shot because I'm not very good at lining it up. So I'm going to, doesn't really matter how the bird's flying, you just kind of want to make sure that its wings and everything get on there. So I'm going to turn them, and I'm going to move them to the right a little bit because I think I might be able to get a flower on the side of them here. Like if I wanted to do the flower over here maybe someplace, or just the petal. So I'm gonna, again, we're not looking for straight because the bird isn't gonna be straight, but then once I decide, I drop it down. And then I'm gonna push just a little bit, not pushing hard, like my fingers, I mean, these are turning a little white, but they're not, I'm not giving it all my strength. And I'm just gonna let it sit there so that the ink can absorb. And then I'm gonna, one pull, I'm just gonna pull it up. So this is a layering flower because I could do this one in one color and this one in another color. We only have the one ink pad, and so we're going to just try this with just the one ink pad, and I'm just gonna see. I think I'll stick that on there like that, but I'm gonna wipe this stamp off first. I keep mine in an old gum container. You can buy a stamp chamois, or you can also use a car chamois from Dollar Tree and just cut it into smaller pieces. I think I can get 4 of them out of a stamp chamois from the Dollar Tree. Just get it a little wet and then put it in your container there, and just make sure it's a little damp, not dripping wet whenever you wipe your stamps off. So I'm gonna come back in here and get a little bit of ink. And then I'm going to make sure I don't have any on my fingers. And then I'm going to stamp that flower down here at the bottom. So there is that. Alright, I'm going to stick this in here. And then this will go on here like this, and then this goes on here like this. And there is a lot of white space here, but we can do some embellishing on there with some of the diamond dots, or even just a pen and drawing some little squigglies or something in there, or you can leave it just as it is. So this one had a sentiment down here that had a little bit of a decorative edge on it. I am going to take this piece here that's a little bit bigger. It is actually about 1.25 inch wide, and I'm going to stamp it, then we're going to size it. So I'm going to take the Sending a Little Love, I think is what I'm going to put on here because it's big enough. I get my ink pad again. I'm just going to stamp it out here. And then this one you want to be a little bit more precise with to make sure that you've got it lined up. Don't worry about too much the edging, making sure you have it the same amount on each side, because we are going to cut it down a little bit. You just really want to make sure, and I'm going to do the best I can. I can't get over the top of it, but I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that it is centered on the paper and straight on the paper. You get your head over it if you need to see it to be able to make sure you have it correct. Now this one, because of the stamp, it kind of wants to rock a little bit. I don't think I'm going to create a shadow because it's a better stamp. It's a heavier duty stamp, but So there is that. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this one off as well and get it put away because we should be done with the stamp set now. Okay, so we're gonna put this away. It's not so bad if you're only using one stamp set, you won't get things mixed up, but once you start to grow your collection, you will start having multiple, so it's important that you try to keep things together and to put them away as you go. I'm going to stick that one off to the side. So again, if we look at this one, if you look at it really close, it's got like a loop and then a loop and then a loop. I'm not going to do that many loops. We are going to start with, we're going to start over here and we're going to just kind of go back and forth with it maybe. It's not perfect. It's okay. I am then going to take this and put it down so that it matches up over here to my side. Turn it around. I'm going to make sure that I have about the same amount of side, about the same amount between my E and the sending here. So I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And then I'm not going to use my pencil this time. I am just going to try to eyeball it here. Maybe easier to use the pencil because the lights are horrible. Okay, so this side is now sort of the opposite of this side. If you don't, which I don't like this thing coming off the end here, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go like this and trim that off a little bit, and I'm going to trim this off a little bit. They were way too pointy for me. But see, the sides are not the exact same, but we gave it a little decoration. The other thing that you could do, which I think I might do just because there's so much here, is don't worry about the edges, but come along here and more of a, we kind of want to make this go along with the words. So there's that. That one kind of looks like a hand on the other side now. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in and try and do a little bit of a loop up to try and get it so that I can come up here, loop up a little bit, and then loop back out. So not the exact same as our image here. Not the exact same, but I think it works. And then if we are not sure about our cutting abilities, we're just gonna come along here. And again, I'm not moving the paper. Keeping that at an angle. And just edging, just going along the edge. So now we're going to go ahead and glue these pieces down. So I'm going to glue this piece to this piece. If you have a corner rounder, you could round the corners on this. The ink dries fairly quickly, but I would still be careful on this paper specifically. I think it's I think it was a Nina or something, I don't know. It's got a little bit of a texture to it and is a little bit smoother of a finish, and so the ink doesn't dry as quickly, so if you rub your fingers across, you can smear it. So now I'm going to take this and put it about here. Yeah, because that gives us enough room. And then we have one other thing that I almost forgot that will fill some of that space there. So I'm going to put this down here. So we have this flag that we're supposed to put up here in the corner. So I'm going to cut this, and this is the reverse of what you would normally do, so I can't cut in the center. So the best I can do is maybe like fold over a little bit to try and get me where my center is, and then I'm going to go down to the center. I could take this piece then that I just cut off here, flip it and put it over here and cut that one this way. So there's that, and then that would go up there, and I think I'm going to cut it down a little bit because I think it's too much. So feel free to use your trimmer if you can't cut a straight line. I can't cut a straight line, but I'm going to cut it that way anyway. And then I'm going to glue that down up here. So that fills in that white space that we had there. We still have this placed on here in the bottom that's got a circle for something here. I think we kind of offset that by putting the flower on there, but if you wanted to add something else, you could add something else there. I'm okay with just that. So now I'm going to find my card base back, and then I'm going to take my glue and glue my card base down, or glue my card front down. Trying to make sure I have the same amount of edge around the top, bottom, and side. So, all right, so let me clean up a little bit here, just so that we have stuff out of the way. And bring in the other card. So there's the two cards. Card number 1 was this card, die cut guide sketch number 2 from Queen & Company. We didn't use any die cuts. Everything was cut with a paper trimmer or scissors. And then this one is die cut sketch number 5. This one here. We didn't have the scallop, so we just used a square, but I think it still turned out cute. So there are the two cards we made today by adding a stamp set to our collection. I mean, if you already had a stamp set, you could have used stamps the last time. If you don't have a stamp set, then feel free to use ephemera like we did last week, because if you had this is the sticker pad that we used last week, we could have easily put the bench in here, or another house in here, or the wreath. We could have used some of these for some of the pieces of paper if we wanted to. So lots of other things that you could have done if you didn't have a stamp set. But if we're adding to our collection a little bit at a time, get your most favorite stamp set. I got this particular one at Michael's, I believe. I don't know that Michael's has Hero Arts anymore, but they might. But they do have some stamp sets. But you can also get them off of Amazon or scrapbook.com. There's a lot of other independent stamp companies out there that you can also get from. So we'll go into some of the other stamps that I have as well, and I'll show you how. Man, that's really crooked. Sorry about that. I'll show you how I store mine. It took me a minute to get to where I could remember what ones I have, but I think I've got a pretty good system now, so I'll share that with you a little bit later on in the series. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much, because we don't have a die cutting machine or anything like that yet, so we're going step by step, baby step, to make sure that we like something before we actually put a lot of money into it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again for another beginner friendly card. Bye.